leadership is a key one, how to identify leaders. Another key one, I suppose, really would be how to demonstrate the value of the programs and the investment that they're actually making. So we've done quite a lot of research in the last year or so, building on several years of research, but really focusing on how to make high potential programs more effective. So our research shows some pretty interesting statistics around the fact that, for example, 50% of people going on those programs globally actually drop out. 50% of the people that get through those programs actually aren't as effective as people expect them to be because they've got that label high potential. And 50% of high potential employees aren't necessarily going to stay with their current organizations. So if you're thinking about demonstrating a return on that investment, quite a substantial investment, then what we've been looking at is how to address three fundamental questions. Will they get there? Will they be effective? And will they still be with you, the organizations investing in them, when they actually realize, if you like, or step into a more senior role? Also, we're working very hard with other organizations around how talent affects certain business problems. So, for example, we've done quite a lot of research around where is retail banking going. So lots of effort going into there in terms of how does retail banking, a highly transactional space, actually leverage more value from its customers. But actually that has a whole series of talent questions that go with it as well. So if you're redesigning how websites, call centers, and actual staff inside a retail bank actually work to leverage more value, then there's a lot of talent questions emerge from that as well. Innovation in R&D, what are the real talents that drive that? And are organizations recognizing those real talents? Or are they rewarding talents that actually don't drive effective innovation? So those are kind of the questions that we've been working with our members to help them understand what the issues are and then actually define solutions and find practical ways they can resolve those issues in their organizations. Well, for example, we now do a lot actually of what we call talent audits. So, traditionally assessments, whether it's personality tests, cognitive ability tests, that kind of thing, would typically be used for recruitment. Now, we've worked very hard to link the data from those assessments through analytics to behaviors that drive particular outcomes in organizations. So imagine, if you will, that in retail banking, we've identified what are the key behaviors through which retail banks can leverage more value from their customers. A natural question that comes from that then is, what are the levels of behavior or potential we have amongst our existing employees? So what we've been asked to do more and more of is to go into organizations with those assessments, not to select people, not to promote them, but to give organizations data on where do they sit against those critical behaviors that will drive success. So they've got a good understanding of where they sit, the levels they've got, how they benchmark with other organizations, so they can have a clear understanding of if the organization's strategy is to change the marketing, is to change the technology, is to change the basic layout of a retail bank. The other part they need to understand is, do we have the people in place to realize that investment? And we can help organizations identify where they have gaps and therefore where they can focus their learning and development investment in closing those gaps. Okay, so I think, in different parts of the world over the last few years, we've seen different waves of growth and recession, and organizations need to respond to those situations quite clearly. So, for example, I think in our country, where I come from in the UK, there's been, quite a big impact of the big financial crisis in 2008. And many organizations have had to move quite rapidly in how they manage costs. So part of that might be not employing quite so many people, but a lot of that will also be around trying to find efficiencies and how they restructure and put new processes in place in order to manage those kind of costs. However, what happens, of course, when the economy starts coming back is you also need people in place who've got the right kind of talents to make those efficiencies carry and therefore to scale as opportunities grow for you as well. I think also, there's a big challenge these days, I think increasing challenge not only in the private sector, but also in the public sector as well. So certainly where I've come from, there's a lot of challenges there where the amount of funding, the number of people has declined. But if you look at somewhere like the UAE, I think there's an interesting set of challenges for the public sector here as well. So as the economy starts to grow, how do you manage and raise and surface talent in terms of education, particularly young talent? How do you manage programs in an effective way that realizes local talent? But also think about the fact that UAE is a hub in the global economy, and we know the global economy is changing quite rapidly. China's economy may be slowing down, but China, India, Southeast Asia are still an increasing factor in the global economy. So UAE, I would imagine, as an effective hub, has to respond to those kind of changes, and that means actually surfacing and developing the talent that will realise those opportunities.